Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be going over bubble sort and how we can implement this algorithm in Python. So, if you don't know what bubble sort is an algorithm where we go through a list, and the goal is to have a sorted list at the end of the entire code. So, if we begin with a list like 3, 1, 5, 2, then when we're going through the list, we have to find a pair of numbers and compare them and see if they're in the correct position. So we go through the list, and for every pair of numbers, we see if those two numbers are in the correct position, like if they're sorted or not. So first, this is what the main goal here. For what we're gonna do is to get the list sorted, we're gonna first compare the two numbers 3 and 1, and now we know that 3 is greater than 1, so 3 should be after 1. So now we know that we can swap these two numbers. So now it becomes 1, 3, and then now that we've swapped 1 and 3, now we look at the next two numbers. So right now it's 1, 3, 5, 2. So now we look at 3 and 5, and we know that 3 and 5 are in the correct position. But now when we look at 5 and 2, this is not a sorted segment of the list because 5 shouldn't be coming before 2. So now we swap that, we make it 2, 5. So again, we swapped every pair of numbers that isn't sorted. However, the entire list still isn't sorted yet because, as you can see, 3 actually comes before 2 here, and so we're gonna have to do that sequence again. And so here, now we're gonna see if 1 and 3 are in the correct position. And 1 and 3, these two numbers are in the correct position, so we move on. So 1, 3, and now we look at 3 and 2, and since 3 and 2 are not in the correct position, we're gonna have to swap 3 and 2 here, so it becomes 2 and 3. And now 3 and 5 are in the correct position. So now we know that 1, 2, 3, 5, that's the sorted list. So while this algorithm is really simple to implement, it's not very efficient when it comes to the time complexity. And what that means is, let's say we have a list of like a million numbers. This code would take a lot of loops and a lot of loops inside loops, and so that's going to be really inefficient, and it's going to take like a lot of time. Okay, and so now let's get into the code and see how we can implement this in Python. So first I'm going to have a function called bubble sort that takes in a list as an argument. So like, for example, our list here is 3, 1, 2, 5, 2, and now we're going to have a main for loop, which is going to be the number of swapping cycles here. So here we've had 2 cycles so far, right? We began with 3, 1, 5, 2, then we came to 1, 3, 2, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 5. So here we actually did 3 cycles because even though we know that this list is sorted, Python doesn't know it. So once another cycle is completed, then the program is gonna end because the computer knows that this is because this code will be able to identify that this is a sorted list. Okay, so this loop runs the number of swapping cycles. So if I have the length of my list here is 4, so this is gonna happen 4 times. Okay, now this for loop is gonna be going through the list and actually checking every pair of consecutive numbers. So like, it's gonna be checking like 3, 1, then it's gonna be checking 1, 5, then it's gonna be checking 5, 2, right? So so here what I'm gonna do is for index in range 0, the length of nums minus I minus 1. So the reason I'm doing the length of nums minus I minus 1. So the reason I'm doing that is because the length of our list here is 4, for example, and the reason we're doing minus I is because that's just gonna show us how many pairs we have left to sort. Like, for example, here, if we begin with this list and now we've sorted it to 1, 3, 2, 5, in the next one we don't have to check this pair again because we already know that it's sorted. So we can actually just begin with the second pair, because here in the first iteration we're gonna have to begin with the first 2 numbers, but in the second one we just have to begin with the second 2 numbers, right? Because we already know that this is sorted. In the third swapping cycle, we only have to check the last pair, because again, we already know that the first two pairs are sorted. So this is actually really good. This is like a good way to keep the efficiency in the code. And the reason I'm doing -1 is because that's gonna prevent the list index out of range error, because like for example, if we have 4 numbers here, but we only have 3 consecutive pairs of numbers, right? We have 1, 2, and 3 consecutive pairs. So instead of running this for loop, for example, instead of running this 4 times, we're gonna run it 3 times, because there are only 3 consecutive pairs of numbers. Okay, now this is actually gonna check if the numbers are in the correct position or not. So for example here, let's just say in the first iteration, I is going to be 0, right? So that means index is also going to be 0. So if the 0th index of nums here, which is 3, if that is greater than the second index of nums, if that's greater than the first index of nums, which is 1. So since 3 is greater than 1, now we're going to swap these. So we're going to swap 3 with 1 and 1 with 3, and so then we're gonna go from 3-1 to 1-3. So that's like our swapping piece of the code. Okay, now in the second iteration of the inner loop, the index is gonna be 1. So now here, if the first index of nums is greater than the second index of nums, so if 1 is greater than 5, and since 1 isn't greater than 5, that means that 1 and 5 are in the correct position, so we don't need to do anything. Okay, now the third iteration of this inner loop, index is going to be 2. So here, if the second index of nums is greater than the third index of nums, so if 5 is greater than 2, which it is, then we're going to switch 5 and 2. So after this, the first iteration of the outer loop is gonna be completed, and then we're gonna end up with this list. But again, this isn't quite sorted yet. We still have to do another pass. We have to do another swapping cycle, okay? And so in the second iteration of the outer loop, I is gonna be 1, right? So that means index is actually gonna be 0. Okay, so here we're gonna redo this. So we're gonna see if 1 and 3 are in the correct position, and they are. Now are 3 and 2 in the correct position? So now here, since 3 is greater than 2, we are gonna swap 3 and 2. So we're gonna end up with 1, 2, 3, 5. And so that marks the completion of the second iteration of the outer loop. Now we're gonna run the outer loop one more time, because even though our list is completely sorted yet, the computer still doesn't know that, the program doesn't know that. So we have to run this loop one more time, and then we can run the inner loop again. And so now we can check that every pair of consecutive numbers is sorted and it is in the correct position. So now we're gonna return nums, and if we run this code, you can see that the list has been sorted. Now if I take another random list of just random unsorted numbers, right? Now if I run this code, yeah, okay, so if I run this code, then as you can see, the numbers are sorted. But if there's a really big list, like I mentioned before, it's gonna take more time to run. So it's not very efficient when it comes to time complexity, but it is really easy to implement, and it's also really intuitive. So that's why I wanted to show you what bubble sort is. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the algorithm. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with your friends. Let's try to get to 80 subscribers, guys. Thank you. Bye.